Regardless of who you talk to, everyone is likely to have different thoughts on what they recall from road trips and their feelings towards them. The sense of unbound adventure that comes from exploring the unknown, the company and laughs. But as my car was running on fumes as I just barely made it into a gas station deep in the night while playing Road to Guangdong, it made me recall that there's also another side of road trips that we typically selectively forget about. Road trips can be a journey with wonderful company to exotic, unfamiliar destinations, but they can also be laborious and sometimes stressful. For better and worse, Road to Guangdong carries with it both sides of this coin, presenting a unique ride through China as Sunny and her gu Ma embark to visit their family across the country. After the passing of both her parents, Sunny is left with the ownership of the family restaurant. Now that the mourning period is over, if Sunny is to become the new owner of the family business, she's still tasked with going to each of her family members across the country to respectfully acquire their blessings as well. Together, in your newly obtained family heirloom and car, Sandy, Sunny and her aunt will travel to several different locations to reach each of these family members. Each of them can be visited in any order that you choose, and while on the surface it may seem as though you're just selecting a level, this decision actually carries more weight to it once you realize that you'll need to drive to them from your current level's destination, and driving across the country will take time and resources. Like a real road trip, most of the time isn't spent at the destination, but rather in the car, on the road. At first, driving can feel a little clunky, but doesn't have too much depth as to become overwhelming. Before too long, you'll find yourself out on the open road, and driving will become second nature. This learning curve happens quickly in part because every road in the game is a straight line. There aren't any directions to follow, or many times where you'll need to turn the vehicle to a specific place outside the garages you'll visit. Sandy is an old vehicle, as Sunny's aunt reminds her, and needs a lot of maintenance in order to get from any location to the next. The air filter, belt, tires, engine, and fuel pump all need to be monitored for quality and wear, and you'll also need to keep a close eye on the gas and oil. If you drive too fast, Sandy will start to overheat, using more oil, and putting more wear on the parts you're working so hard to keep pristine. Budgeting your speed and time wisely, you'll need to stop at various garages along the way for gas and repairs, as well as any waste piles which hold extra parts. These parts can be used in a pinch, or sold for more money to be used at the aforementioned garages. Managing all these deteriorating moving parts can be an engaging exercise in multitasking near the game's beginning. There's an ebb and flow to managing how many parts you can carry in a limited inventory, to assuming how much cash you'll make at the next garage, versus how useful that item will be in the moment. It becomes more of a challenge when you take into account that mechanics have the same number of inventory slots for buying these items that you do to hold them, so you don't benefit from just picking up all the junk, and need to really consider the best options. However, it's disappointing, given that it's all too easy to accumulate an overabundance of funds as you progress. Certain items, specifically engines found in scrap piles, sell for 10 or more times the value of any other junk that you'll find, and serve to ruin a balance of careful consideration that you'll otherwise have to go through when taking care of your vehicle. Another small nitpick involves the mechanic themselves. There are several menus showing what you can buy, as well as what you can fix. There's no communication between these menus though. A comparative indication between these parts from buying, selling, and repairing would have gone a long way. When you finally arrive at one of the level's destinations, you're greeted with a story between family members. These are largely straightforward, with a few branches in dialogue to choose from. They have a wide variety, from dog-sitting while you help friends settle a dispute, to deciding whether or not to hide a chicken you're supposed to make for dinner when your niece is attached to it as a pet. Given the length of the driving segments, these are especially refreshing, even in their simplicity. There's also an added pressure that if things don't go the correct way, the family members may not decide to visit for the annual reunion dinner. Depending on your success in completing these stories, these characters may or may not show up during the game's conclusion, but the pressure isn't so large as to be game-changing. There was a distinct point when playing Road to Guangdong that felt particularly indicative of describing the experience. While driving, throughout the entire game, you'll hear the same 5 songs play on repeat constantly. At one point, while deliriously fatigued after driving all night, I attempted to switch the radio station from the overcalming classical oriental music, and was immediately met with Sunny's aunt switching the radio back, claiming that she was listening to that. It gave me an intensely evocative reaction. I realized that somehow, this game was recalling a certain feeling about being on road trips that we just don't like to talk about. The times when you want to listen to anything beyond the one mix CD you've heard 1,000 times, the overwhelming relief that comes from simply not being in the car with those closest to you anymore. Road to Guangdong has interesting ideas, and definitely has places where it shines in showing family and culture. But the 10th time I'd heard my aunt tell me that the ride reminded her of Journey to the West, I suddenly felt tapped into the deep emotions that make a driver threaten to turn the car around. There are good things that come out of road trips. Road to Guangdong just dwells on the monotony and tired frustration that we forget about from them, over those small sparks of family, scenery, and exploration. While it's fun to visit the family and see these stories' outcomes, like many road trips taken, the lengthy and mundane times you'll spend in between the moments on the linear streets makes for a less satisfying experience overall than the happier ones you'd prefer to remember from your destination.